Now, in the previous lessons, we built an empty concordance database and then loaded into it the DAT file containing the various metadata and text information that we received from a vendor. While the database is now searchable and functional, the image base is not yet created. And we can see that when I click on this camera button here, I'll get an error. As you can see, the error states that Opticon was not able to find this image in the image base. Basically, when the camera button was clicked, Opticon looked at the image key, which is the start page number here, and attempted to find a matching TIFF file. However, without a proper image base, Concordance and Opticon simply do not know where to look for that TIFF image. And what do we mean by the image base? Let's go back to Windows and take a closer look at the files that we created. Now remember from the last lesson, when we first built the empty Concordance database, there were only about 4 files that were created. Just the DCB file, the INI, the key, and the layout file. But once we've added in the text, more files such as NDX, TRK, and TAX files were created. But when we clicked on the camera viewer button, the following files were created: the DIR and VOL. The DIR and VOL files are what we call the image base. These are the 2 files that the Concordance database will look at in order to find the appropriate TIFF images for display. Remember the image log file that we went over in the previous lesson? This information here, once it's been loaded into Concordance and ready for use, is converted by Concordance into a DOR and VOL file. In other words, this information is converted by Opticon into what is known as the image base. The reason that the images don't display currently is because the image base right now is empty. We haven't loaded in the image load file yet. Also, notice that in addition to the DIR and VOL files, another DCB, INI, and key file was created. In fact, if you look at the names, notice that these new files make up a separate database called APL-CS-demo-redlines, and each one of these new files is named in the same way. Concordance, beginning with version 8, automatically creates empty databases to hold redline information. That means when you first activate this camera button to view Opticon, Concordance builds this empty redlines database to hold any redactions, highlighting, or other annotations you might have done to the TIFF images in the future. So all the files here named APL-CS-demo.extension make up the main database for searching and editing that we built in the previous couple of lessons. And these 3 files are the empty redlines database that will store all the annotations. These 2 groups of files exist separately, but they work together. The main database keeps track of the main DAT or metadata field information, and the redlines database keeps track of annotations. We've discussed the notice database in general during the lesson on tagging. So for now, let's put our focus on building this image base, meaning filling the DIR and VOL files with the correct image location information. Our goal is to take the information from this image load file and load it into the image base using Concordance Image 2007, or as I've been referring to it as Opticon. In order to do that, we simply go back to Concordance and click on the camera button again. Click OK to get rid of this error prompt. Now to load the image load file into the image base, we go to Tools, Image Base Management. We'll then be prompted to find the image base file, which will be the same file name as your image base but ending .dir. So in this example, we want the file named apl-cs-demo.dir. Once we select the file, the Image Base Management dialog box that appears is where most of the work will be done. Now, while there are multiple tabs of options available, the tab that we are interested in for now is the Register Load tab. Very simply, to load the image load file, we just click on this Browse button, find the log file we want to use, then select it and click Open. Then we just click the Load button. And as you can see, the status box now informs us that the files have been loaded. And that is pretty much it. The image is now loaded, and if I go back into Concordance and now click on the camera button, the image pops up and my work is complete. The database and the images are now completely available. But instead of stopping here, let's go back to the Imagebase management screen to look at some of the more common options that you might need. We won't go over all the options, but we'll go ahead and hit the highlights. The first tab we will look at is the Edit tab. This is a quick display of the information regarding the image load file that was loaded. In this view, we can see some helpful information. We can see the alias, which is the image key or the start page in this database, and we can also see the image that this alias is pointing to, listed here. So from this screen, we can see that the first record of 000100001 is pointing to a TIFF file 0010001.tiff. It is a one-page document. It is the start of a new document, and that the TIFF image is located in this particular directory. The breaks here were indicated by the letter Y in the image load file, and had there been any box of photo breaks, they would have shown up in these checkboxes. Not only will this screen give me some quick information on the location of each file and each image key, but I can also edit this information by changing the information here in these boxes. For instance, if I wanted to, I could have this first page point to a different image. Instead of 0010001.tiff, I could change this to point to 000100002.tiff. Then all I have to do is click the Save button, and now when I click on the camera button of the first page, I will actually get the second page. As you can see, this is a simple way to make any small edits or adjustments to the image pointers without the original image load file. The only thing that I cannot change using this screen is the directory that the images are located in. For that, I need this tab here, the Directory tab. Now, remember from a previous lesson, this image load file contained directory path information to the TIFF images that was not actually correct. As we have mentioned previously, the image path provided by your vendor will likely need modification, and we were able to simply change the drive letter path information using an edit and replace function prior to loading the Imagebase load file. Well, instead of editing the file before it is loaded, we could have also simply loaded the file as it is and then make the directory changes here under this Directory tab. The Directory tab lists all the folder paths that have been loaded into the Imagebase. Here we can see that the main directory of my images is set to C demo images, which is where my images are currently located. Now I could simply select this line and in this directory box here, change the drive letter and path, and let's change it to path M. As you can see, my directory path for my images are now in m/demo directory, just as you can see here in the Edit tab. And right now, if I were to click on the camera button in Concordance, I would get an error saying the image cannot be found. This is because we had just changed the directory path to M, which does not exist on this computer. So let's change the information back to the C drive. We'll again go to Tools, Imagebase Management, find our Imagebase dir file, the dir file, and bring up the Directory tab again. This time, instead of just typing the change and clicking Save, I can also do a target and replacement. I'll put in a target of m:/ and replacement of c:/ and click the Replace button. This is a much quicker way of doing a replacement if the image load file is a long one. Here we only have one volume and one TIFF file location. But if there have been many different directory locations, then I can simply do a target replace instead of selecting each one and saving it individually. Another tab that is helpful is the Imagebase tab. This tab allows you to merge the image base of several Concordance databases into one. So if you have multiple dir files, you can simply click this Merge button, find the second dir file, and click Open. Doing so will merge two image bases from two different Concordance databases. Now, while the register load that we just used is likely the most frequent option you'll use, you should also note the option next to it, which is register scan. Register scan is something you should never have to use, but when you do, you'll be glad that it's there. Register scan allows you to create an image base without having an image load file. It's not perfect, but in a pinch it can give you a good starting point. Remember that the image load file looks like this, and all we did was simply load it into an Opticon? Well, What if we didn't have this image load file and only had the TIFF images? Instead of loading a load file, we can use the register scan to actually create one. Let me first delete the dir and vol file so that we can get a fresh Imagebase start. Now, if I pull up the Imagebase management option and find the apl.cs.demo.dir file, as you can see from the edit screen, the information is now empty. But instead of loading the load file, I'll pretend that I don't have one. In that case, I'm going to go into the register scan. Register scan generates a load file based on the existing path of images. So I simply choose the path to scan, in this case the path that contains images, and if I want, I can scan subdirectories or even create aliases. I'm going to leave both of these unchecked for now because I know there are no subdirectories and I don't need aliases for the moment. Once I have everything set, I also need to set the file extensions of the image documents. In this case, we are looking for TIFF documents. We could also just scan for PDFs or any other files, but for this demo, we'll keep things simple and go with just TIFF documents. Now I just click Scan button. And what we have now is a working Imagebase. The only difference is if we take a look at the edit screen, there's nothing under the alias column here. The alias in this case refers to the image key. That's the base number that exists in the Concordance database, which identifies which image should be displayed. And without an alias, Opticon automatically assumes the number in the image key field as it is typed as the correct one. So even without the image key, the images come up fine, as we can see here once I click on the Opticon button. And right now, the only piece that is missing are the document breaks. While each image does come up for display, Opticon and Concordance have no way to determine how the document breaks up, meaning how many pages are in each document. For that, we go back to the Document Breaks tab. This tab reads the first image key of each Concordance record and marks this as a new record. Meaning Opticon will see that this record 000200001, it will take that image name and mark it as a document. Then the next record 00020003 will be marked as a new record. In this way, it is as if Opticon had manually inserted a document break to each location of a new record. All I have to do to the document breaks is check off these two boxes and click the Set button. Once done, as you can see now when I bring up the document, the current page counts are showing. One thing to keep in mind about the Document Breaks tab option is that we'll base the document breaks on the records that are currently being displayed. Right now I have all 25 records in Concordance showing, but if I did a search, limited the records to maybe 6 documents, then only 6 document breaks will be created, which means that some of these images will be much larger than they ought to be. So just be aware of that one limit when using the document breaks function. Now in summary, those are some of the major functions that can be performed within the Imagebase to create proper document and page breaks within Opticon. The main function that is left with Opticon is the production of documents, which we will be looking at in the next lesson, along with the exporting of metadata information.